part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast. I'm your host, Scott Sabol.
And I'm John Sabol. How you guys doing out there?
So how often can you have a guest on a podcast who is a former Ohio State Buckeye, a national champ, a former NFL player, and a Cleveland native? Our guest today fits all four of those qualifiers. Really interesting guest.
And when you say NFL player or former NFL player, we can also add in there, Scott, a former Cleveland Brown, although relatively, short term. Right. A couple months in the offseason. Our guest today is Tyvis Powell. You may know that name from what Scott just said, Buckeyes, NFL, Cleveland native, but also because he is now the new co-host of the Orange is Oranger podcast with Holly Wetzel right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. We dive into his college days, talking about the current state of Ohio State football. We talk about his brief tenure with the Browns, the current Brown situation with Baker Mayfield, all that stuff, as well as previewing this weekend's Super Bowl out in LA between the Bengals and Rams. Our conversation with Cleveland native Tyvis Powell coming up right after this.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it, Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
Hey everyone, I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Jeremy Powell.
And we are your hosts of the Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need each week to get you ready for kickoff and beyond.
Don't miss our breakdowns of each week's matchups, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we all know, Holly, dogs got to eat.
That's right, Jeremy. Hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. If you are new to the Press Play family, well, you're going to be hearing a familiar voice somewhat soon here in the month of February as a new host is on board with us at the Press Play Podcast Network. Former Ohio State Buckeye, a 2014 national champ, I might add, with the Buckeyes, as well as a Cleveland native and a 5-year NFL vet. Tyvis Powell is the new co-host of the Orange is Oranger podcast with Holly Wetzel, and he joins our episode with Tyvis Powell on Sabol Brothers on the Baseline. Tyvis, what's going on, man? How you been?
Oh man, you know what? I'm living good. This snowstorm is definitely it's getting to me. I already told Scotty I owe him an apology because he's been telling me all week that it was gonna be a storm, and I said, Scott, I just don't believe that. I'll believe it when I see it. I woke up this morning and I went out there to shovel that driveway and I said, you know what? I can't even be mad. Scott been telling me all week that it was coming and I should have prepared better.
I have family members that said the same thing, so don't feel bad.
Oh, yeah. Tyvis, my family gives him crap all the time about, hey, you said it was going to snow 5 inches and it snowed 6. You could be off an inch.
Oh, yeah.
It's unfair. So, Tyvis, you've been in the NFL. You came out of Ohio State after the 2015, season, if you will, or that spring, went undrafted,
Yes.
signed on with the Seahawks. You eventually played for the Browns for a few months there. We'll get and then the Colts, Seahawks again, Niners, Jets, Texans, Cowboys, and Broncos. And then recently you're in training camp with the BC Lions of the CFL. So before we get into everything, what are you doing now? Is your football career over? Are you kind of seeing what's happening? I know you're doing the podcast thing with Orange is Oranger. What are you up to these days?
Well, these days, I am a father now. So, taking care of my daughter is the number one thing on my list. And my wife is actually pregnant again, where she's due in May the 3rd to be exact, with another girl.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So I'll have my hands busy with that. But as far as career wise, I'm trying to shift my focus into the media world, sports media, so I do radio for 97.1 The Fan. I made an appearance on 92.3 The Fan last week. So trying to get my name out there with that. Want to progress into maybe getting onto TV, but I am still in shape. So if a team is out there, if a team is listening to this podcast and you need a safety to come in, I am willing to run through a wall for any team. I'm very still passionate about the game, and I am very well in shape.
Tyvis, what about if Scott and I had a flag football team? Would you come on our team?
I was just thinking about that.
Flag football. I could do that. I could.
That get a little rough,
because see, the thing about that flag football is it's not easy grabbing them flags. So it's like you really got to tackle them, then snatch the flags off.
All right, so let's start from the beginning. You graduated from Bedford. You got recruited by more than a dozen teams, but ultimately picked Ohio State. Were the Buckeyes your number one choice right out of the gate? How did all that whole process work out for you?
Well, being an Ohio native, everybody wants to go to Ohio State.
Sure,
dream, that dream started in 2002 when I was just a young lad. I always said I wanted to go to Ohio State. And, for the longest time during my recruiting, I really didn't hear too much from them. When my coach, my high school coach, I told him all I really wanted to do was go to college for free because my mother could not afford to pay for college. So once I got my first offer, technically he was done, but I told him that I really wanted to go to Ohio State. So we kept fighting for that. And, once that offer rolled in, it was signed, sealed, and delivered.
Now, how awkward was it for you when you got to Ohio State? Because you were recruited by Jim Tressel, then he left, and then Urban Meyer came in. So as a recruit that comes in at a school like the Ohio State University, I guess maybe awkward isn't the right word, but how big of an adjustment was that, knowing you're going to play for one coach and then a bigger name coach comes in? Granted, he honored all the recruits, including yourself, but walk me through that feeling back then.
Well, back then, obviously, Jim did give me the offer and I was thrilled. I was ecstatic when he gave me the offer. When he called me and told me he was offering me, I almost shed a tear because I've been waiting on that phone call since 2002. And then after I committed to him, I didn't make it public yet. I did it to him. And then obviously he ended up resigning. And I had already scheduled my press conference that I was still going to commit to Ohio State and blah, blah, blah. So once I did that, obviously I committed to Coach Fick. And then, they end up hiring Coach Meyer. Mm-hmm. I get a phone call in about late November from him telling me that he's going to honor my commitment and stuff like that. So I had to recommit to him. So it was funny. I committed to Ohio State technically 3 times before I even got there. So when I ended up getting there, it was the program was going through a transition because, it was some bad things going on, and Coach Meyer was trying to weed out all the bad people and all the guys that didn't want to be there. And I kind of came in early. So I came in the crossfire of all that. So we had those 5 a.m. workouts where it was brutal. I'm not going to lie to you. It was the wintertime. We was outside bear crawling and doing all these crazy stuff in the snow. And to me, being naive, I'm thinking, man, this is what a college workout is like. This is not what I thought college was like. And all the guys obviously was like, no, this is some other stuff. This ain't really what it is. And so that was my experience with Coach Meyer, my first days on the yard.
So you were on that 2014 Ohio State team that won the national championship. Take us back to the moment when you realized you guys had a shot at winning the whole thing. I mean, because you went through quarterbacks that season,
Yes.
When did you realize, okay, I think we got a shot here?
I actually realized it very early. I realized it in the Penn State game of that season. We ended up going. That was the game we went into double overtime with them, and Joey had the walk-off sack. The reason that game was special to me is because we battled some adversity in that game, and JT ended up having I can't remember if he sprained his MCL or he tore his MCL, but something happened to where he couldn't run, and I think to win the game, he ended up scrambling and running it in. So from that moment on, I realized that this team was resilient and we loved each other so much that would propel us, and we'll do anything to win and find a way to win games. And I think that's the recipe that you need to win national championships.
I'll be honest, Tyvis, when Braxton Miller went down with that shoulder injury in training camp, I'm like,
you and everybody else. Listen, I was like, what in the world happened? They was like, nobody touched him. He tried to throw a ball and he just fell to the ground. And everybody was like, what? And they ended up calling practice like, oh, practice is over. And we get to the locker room and obviously it ended up coming out on social media. And I remember seeing our odds to win the championship like drop tremendously. And I'm just like, wow.
When I got that alert that happened, I was sitting on a beach in Tampa, actually in St. Petersburg, with my high school buddy who's an Ohio State alum. And we're sitting there drinking a beer, and it came on our phone and we almost like threw up. We were like, this is just awful. Our day was ruined. And it was just, oh, well, the season's going to, not be good. And then everything changed. And then JT came in and had a historical season. And he got hurt in that game against Michigan there with the ankle. And then, Cardinal came in and just, lit it up. So, talk about Urban Meyer. It's amazing to see what he has done in his career in college. Yes. And then what just happened in Jacksonville. Were you surprised Urban's time in Jacksonville didn't last a full season? Like, did you think he would have success? Obviously, he's gone, but what were your thoughts on the whole transition and then what happened on his exit?
Well, my thoughts initially when he took the job was, I don't know if his methods is going to work because, when you get to the NFL, obviously everybody has their own routine. You got players in there that's old veterans, that's all pros, been to Pro Bowls and stuff like that. And Coach Meyer is really on a family first, you either do it my way or the highway type thing. And I didn't know how veteran players would look at that. Like, you want me to try to switch what I'm doing? I done been all pro and I done been a Pro Bowler. You're gonna try to tell me how to go about my business? Like, that doesn't. I didn't see how veterans would see that. But I will say his culture and his methods work, but everybody has to buy into it. And that's the hardest thing to do because for so long you're used to doing it your own way. Even some people find success in doing it their own way, and trying to switch that whole thing is going to be a lot of push and pull with it. And I didn't know how the players would respond to it. So
how do you think Ryan Day has done so far? He's been coach, a little over 3 years. Very successful, it seems, at least record-wise. But what's your opinion?
I think Ryan Day is doing a really good job. He's had some really good teams. I just don't. It's just been something every year that held them back. And I mean, you could say for the past couple of years, it's been. Everybody would probably say it's been the defense, which I would probably agree with that. Well, I think what he's doing, developing these players and at least giving them the chance to at least compete for a national championship, I think he's doing a tremendous job. I just think it's a couple of minor tweaks that they need to do, obviously, with the defense. And if they can get that fixed, they should be able to win it all. So fingers crossed on that.
So we all know what happened on the Saturday after Thanksgiving this past year. Scott and I were actually watching the game together in his basement. We're not going to go into it. Hey, you know what? Blind squirrel, right? So, at least in my opinion. So, is Michigan back? What are your thoughts?
What? No, don't do that. I don't do that. No, they're not. No, they are not back at all. I think, obviously, when I watched that game this year, the thing that popped out to me is that it meant more to them this year. They actually had more passion, more energy. For us, it just seemed like, we Ohio State, we're going to show up. We've been dominating them for 10 years. Let's just show up, do what we do, and we should be able to get out of there. And you could tell that they played flat and lackadaisical, and it meant more to them. So that's why they ended up coming out on top. And on top of that, they had them 2 edge rushers, and I got to give credit when credit's due, man. Them 2 edge rushers is game records, and they was having a field day back there. So that's what it is.
It's funny, Tyvis, real quick, Scott. Sorry, it's funny. No one is talking about the talent that they're losing this year.
The team North?
Yeah.
It's over with. I think that's why Jim was trying to get out of there so much, because he kind of knows, like, this is you don't get edge rushers like this. You don't get a passionate group of men like this. And this was just a special season for them. So that's why it wasn't no hate in my heart with them. Like when they got to the Big Ten championship and the playoffs, it didn't matter to me if they won or lost. I thought that they were a special group of kids that finally put something together, and I wanted them to try to do the best they can. And it didn't work out well, so it is what it is.
Yeah, you touched on Jim Harbaugh. When I saw that come down on my phone, I'm like, wait, he's interviewing for the NFL? Really? And then, it seemed like 5 seconds later, I'm good. Were you surprised he actually returned?
What I'm surprised about is that they let him do all of this. Like, the way for them to be the program that they are, because this is not like we talking about Akron or something like this. It's like a lot of coaches that would want to be the head coach there. And for you to treat it the way that he was treating it, like the man went to do an interview on National Signing Day. It's like, it was kind of like disrespectful, but I guess, they felt like, he just gave us a great season. So it's not like we could just fire him, but I felt like, yeah, you could, but it is what it is. Him returning, it's good for the Buckeyes, I'd say, because we've had a lot of success against him. So it's good for the Buckeyes.
I thought the exact same thing. National Signing Day. Granted, National Signing Day nowadays is not what it used to be like 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, since they had the early signing period in December. But still, it's a bad look to interview for a different job. And, it's a win-win, I think, on everyone, because it's a win because Michigan doesn't need to scramble for a head coach. And it's a win for Ohio State because, now they can, they're going to be reloaded and Michigan's can be depleted in theory on paper on both sides. And so, you could probably chalk that up into a W now here in the winter. So,
I think the person that was most excited about him returning is probably Ryan Day. I think it would have eaten Ryan Day up at nighttime going to sleep to see Jim Harbaugh leave there, because he wants some revenge. And if you don't know, Ryan Day is the ultimate competitor. Like he probably loses sleep at night because of the way the result of that game, and he want his get back. And if he has a chance to put up 100 points next year, he is going to get it done.
I would love to see that happen. So you are removed from the college game since the last that national championship game, which would be technically the 14th season, but it happened in 15. So we're now looking at 7 years. So a lot has changed in college, Tyvis. NIL has exploded.
Yes, it is.
I know you're jealous.
I am. I really am. It eats me up because I think I would have made a killing off of this back when I was playing.
I mean,
I told my mother right now, I said, you waited too early. You had a kid too early. You should have waited just about 6 or 7 more years, and then I could have ate this up.
So I guess the big question is, in your opinion, is NIL good or bad for college football?
That's actually a great question. It depends on what the student athlete, I believe. I was explaining this yesterday, actually. I think when you look at the NIL for the players, it's good because they finally getting some compensation. People come from different backgrounds. It's a lot of players that come from poverty. They could take this money, be able to provide for their families. They'll be able to make it through things. They don't have to worry about struggling to eat and paying for stuff. That's good. The bad part about it is it might shift the focus off of what's really important. So, for example, if you're an 18-year-old kid and you come from a poverty place, like it's poor, and your dream, let's say in this case, your dream is to go to Ohio State, right? And Texas come and say, you know what, we got $100,000 for you right now if you sign. Now, to an 18-year-old kid, $100,000, that's a lot of money. Like that's something that you don't see. Do you give up your dream? do you give up the chance to be coached at Ohio State, to live the dream of being a Buckeye and potentially not, being in, because, Ohio State does a great job of preparing people for the NFL, which is the ultimate goal. So do I go there and get that great coaching and help myself have a better chance of going to the NFL, or do I take this $100,000 now, be able to, don't know what's going to happen at Texas because that program is up and down anyways, and jeopardize my chances of maybe potentially being a great player and going to the NFL and getting the millions of dollars. And I think that's the problem right there. Do you take the 100,000 now, or do you wait and get the millions later? And it's hard as an 18-year-old kid to see the future because you so right now and in the moment. And I think that's the biggest problem with it.
It's funny. You look at like Quinn Ewers. I mean, he comes in, capitalizes on NIL without even taking a snap. I know he took a few snaps later, but he was already cashing in, rumored to be close to six figures, if not more, in endorsement deals in, Columbus area companies. And then he, plays a couple snaps against, was that Michigan State game? I think it was. Yeah. And then realizes there's no way he's getting that starting job next year because CJ Stroud just explodes. And then he bolts out of there and goes down, back into Texas. So, hey, more power to him. Not knocking the kid at all. You got to do what you got to do. But
absolutely.
If I were him, I may do the same thing. It's just interesting that you're going to probably see he may just be the first player, the first kid to do this, where you're going to go a big top recruit, go to a big school, and you're going to have to sit a year, but you're going to make money. And then there's an opening at a different school, and it's almost like you're a free agent in pro sports. You're just going to.
That's exactly what it is.
And it's like, anybody that knocks him like that is silly, because don't hate the player, hate the game, hate the system. But that system is now finally benefiting these kids, where years and years and years they didn't. And then you had college coaches doing the same thing. Half the time they don't even say goodbye for Brian Kelly. Then he came back. So it's just it is what it is. So react on that real quick.
Well, I was gonna say that transfer portal is really changing the game because. But you know what? I'm for it, but I'm against it. I'm for it if you're a kid that's gone to college and you've been there for, 2 or 3 plus years, and you've given it everything you've gotten, and you just flat out, there's just players that's just better than you, then yes, you need to transfer, because also everybody's goal is to make it to the NFL. I don't care who you are. You want to go to the NFL. So you need to get yourself on the field to be able to get film so you can go to the NFL. Now, if you're a kid, now these freshmen that's coming in and doing 1 year and then transferring out of there, I'm not with that, because it's like it's taking the competitive nature away. And that really bothers me, because you become a great player by going up against great players, because they're gonna make you raise your game of your level of play. And these people is just tucking their tails and running. Like they shine away from competition. If you want to go to the NFL, it's competition every single day, and they bringing in new free agents off the street every Tuesday to try to come in there to take your job. So I think you need to have that competitive mindset in college. You need to at least develop it in college and know how to compete against these players. That's where I am mad about the transfer portal.
All right, Tyvis, let's shift gears here a little bit. Let's talk about the Browns now. I'm going to pull my old man card here that my dad puts on me, because my dad will go, I remember back in 61. Well, I'm going to pull the old man card, because I remember when the Browns were good back in the late 80s and early 90s. and the 90s were a weird time. Were you a Browns fan growing up? You've seen a lot of really lean teams back in the day, but Were you a hardcore Browns fan, or did you shift allegiances and go elsewhere?
No, I was when they came back in 99, I've been a fan since that until today.
So I know it was brief. Okay, so it was only 4 months in the off season, but how cool was it that you were actually on the Browns roster? What was that like?
It was a dream come true. I tell you that. Listen, it was everything, because when I was there, to me, it meant something to me. It meant more to me. Like I did some extra stuff. I was there early. I used to get up at like 5:30 and get there at 6. I used to like stay late after OTAs to do drills, because it mattered to me. Like I didn't want, obviously, growing up, I seen the hardships of being a Browns fan and all these terrible records. So I wanted to do everything I could to try to change that. Problem was, it didn't work out for me because I ended up gaining like 20 pounds, which is I've never had. I was 230, and for my whole life I've been like 205, 210. So this 230 thing slowed me down, and I could never lose that weight quick enough for them. So that's probably why it didn't work out for me there. But me being a Brown was everything, man. That was the coolest experience. It's not a lot of people that can say that they had an opportunity to play for their hometown team. So I cherished that moment.
Obviously, you're a big Browns fan, Tyvis. You followed them this season. Obviously, a big disappointment for this team. Who deserves most of the blame for the 2021 Cleveland Browns? Baker Mayfield, Kevin Stefanski, GM Andrew Berry, or someone else? Is it collaborative? I know Scott and I have our opinions on it. What is yours?
Whoever was in charge of the decision to allow Baker Mayfield to continue to play hurt. That's whoever is the one who said, you know what, we're going to let him play. Whether it's him, whether it's Stefanski, or whether it's Andrew Berry, it might be all three. Whoever said let that man number 6 jog out there after them injuries and keep playing, it's their fault at 100%, and you can't tell me differently.
Yeah,
so do you think
I didn't get that. I'm sorry, Scott. I didn't get that either. You know, why even play him? But you know, it is what it is. It's over now.
Listen, if you don't play him, now I get it. Baker Mayfield he's a passionate guy. He feels like this is his team. This is a contract year for him. So you know, he wants to go out there. He wants to show that A, I can play through injury. B, this team goes as I go. And C, I am the leader. You know, I can lead this team to victory. So I get why he wants to go out there. But if I am the play caller, if I'm Kevin Stefanski and I'm caught and I'm looking at my play sheet and I say to myself, I can't call this play because I don't think he can make this throw. That right there that's a red flag. Okay, that's the first red flag right there. 2, if I get out there in that game when I see my quarterback throwing the ball and it's like, dude, what are you doing? What type of pass is that? Boom, that's another red flag right there. I don't know why I don't know if they was scared to come to him and say, hey, Baker, we need you to sit this one out. We're going to let Keenum. I mean, we paying Case Keenum $7 million anyways to just stand there, I guess. So this season was crazy. It was crazy.
Do you think Baker's the long-term quarterback for the Browns? I mean, we've seen him play for a handful of years now. I mean, this year, put the injury aside. What's your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. Is Baker the long-term quarterback? Let's see. All right, so Baker Mayfield, my problem with Baker is, and this has always been my problem with him, is not that he's short or none of that cocky attitude, none of that. I actually like that. The problem is he is wildly inconsistent. You know, you think about his rookie season. He comes in, he tears it up, breaks the passing touchdown for a rookie. We got us something. The next year, terrible, disaster. The year after that, we say, oh, it's Freddie Kitchens' fault. They fired Freddie Kitchens. They get Stefanski in here. Baker go out there and have probably his best professional season as a quarterback. I think he had 20 touchdowns with like under 10 interceptions or something like that. It was phenomenal. This season, total disaster. So for me, it's been up and down, up and down. So I need him to be consistent for at least 2 solid seasons. So if I was the Browns, I would let him come back. This whole season is not entirely his fault. His weapons were not, his wide receivers options was not that great. They seem to have regressed this season. So I would get him some talent at the wide receiver position, let him do his thing, see how this season goes. If, I don't know, let's see, after 4 games, if he's not leading this team and throwing touchdowns and using these weapons correctly, then I'm putting somebody else in there and then we're going to go ahead and move forward. But if he does go on to have a great season, I'm franchise tagging him for a 5th year for the next year. And if he does it again, then I'll pay. That's how I do that.
Man, Tyvis, I completely agree with that. And that's been my argument and point the whole time. There's no reason to rush out of him despite his inconsistent play when the Browns aren't in a position to draft like a Joe Burrow, even though that's very, very adding insult to injury to everything, and we're jealous of the Bengals. But I mean, and you can't get anybody on the free agent market right now. I mean, it's just not feasible. So, and your point also, and it's a good segue to my next question. The wide receiver play this past season was absolutely dreadful. Yes. So I think the Browns should target a wide receiver in the first round with that first pick. What do you think? And I hopefully it's going to be one of your former.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson. If I don't see them doing anything on quarterback there, they're not going to go any maybe depth on any linemen or anything like that. It's got to be wide receiver, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's either going to be a wide receiver or some type of defensive tackle or /DN, depending on the Clowney situation. But I think, when you sit back and you look at these playoffs and you look at these teams that's still in there, every one of them has one thing. They got game play making wide receivers, the big play making wide receivers. You think of a Jamar Chase, you think of Cooper Kupp, you think of Tyreek Hill, you think of Stephon Diggs, you think of or Gabe Davis, who nobody even knew who he was until a couple weeks ago. But you think of that, and you think of the Browns, and we old school. We running the ball. We don't have that guy at receiver that's a threat. Once Odell left, I think all defenses said, you know what, we good. We can, because Odell, whether you liked him or not, he requires attention because everybody's seen those clips that his father put out. He was open. The man knew how to get open. He was a tough cover, So once he left, I think all defenses tighten up, and we said they're gonna stack the box for the run. And if they don't run the ball, it's not like nobody's going to burn us deep. So we should be good. And I think that's what this offense is technically missing right now. And they need to find a way to get that, whether they is via free agency or through the draft.
So how difficult is it? You got a team sport like football, and once you get into the NFL, fans, especially with social media, it gets crazy. We see it in the media, just being in the media, not in sports, myself included. But when you're playing, especially with the NFL and the NBA, how difficult is it, and how hard of a transition was it to meet the expectations of the media, the fans, everybody else? Because you're on, the microscope is on you. Not to say it wasn't when you played at Ohio State, but how is it different in the NFL in that regard?
Well, I think in the NFL, you're not protected as much. You in college, they kind of have people that kind of watch over you, that type of thing. But when you're in the NFL, it's free game. They can say whatever, you can say whatever type thing. I think the best way to address the media is when I was there, to me, I was just truthful and I was honest with them. I just cut straight to the chase. As far as like Twitter and people tweeting me and stuff like that, I mean, you could choose not to look at it. You could choose to let it fuel you, or you can let it bring you down. I think ultimately, it's some outliers in there, but for the most part, people have opinions and they have the right to voice their opinion to you. The way I took it is they were so vested in the team that they wanted to see me do well. And every conversation is not going to be a happy conversation. Sometimes you need that hate to fuel you, because sometimes hate can be the best love, the best form of love. And it's all about just being mature enough to, take it with a grain of salt. Don't let it get to your heart. Let it motivate you to get better. Because if you was doing good, they wouldn't be saying nothing negative to you. So it just shows you that you got something to do, something to work on in your game, and you just fix it and you get better.
And to your point, I think that's the one thing Baker Mayfield needs to do, is not let these social media and go on social media and draw more attention to yourself or himself. And, let all the naysayers get to him. Use it as fuel to yourself. Don't even react to it. You're causing more damage than good. Someone needs to tell him that.
Yeah, I think that's why he came out and said he gonna take a break, because he wants to react to everything. But like you said, he should just realize that Cleveland is a passionate city. I mean, we haven't done anything special until he came and took us to the playoffs, and everybody is grateful for that. But once you do that, like, it's opening doors for, like, now we want more. We want more. We know y'all got it. Just deliver it. We want it now. And when you don't do that, obviously, we're not used to being a winning franchise. So, people revert back to their old things. And being a quarterback is always the toughest, because you're going to get all the praise, but you also receive all the blame. And you just got to be able to, you just stay level-headed. Don't take it to the heart and don't take praises to the head.
Super Bowl's coming up, Tyvis. Bengals, Rams. Who thought that was going to happen? Jeez. Tough for Browns fans to watch since OBJ is thriving with the Rams and, of course, in-state rival Bengals during the game. I know there are some Buckeyes on that Bengals roster, Joe Burrow, Isaiah Prince, and I think some of your former teammates, Eli Apple, Von Bell, Sam Hubbard, you played with those guys, right?
Yes, I did.
So who you got, LA or Cincy?
I'm biased, obviously. I gotta go for my guys. I don't have any hate against Cincinnati, even though they are quote unquote the in-state rival. I'm a fan of all Ohio sports. Obviously, I'm a Browns first, but if an Ohio team has a chance to win a Super Bowl, I'm for that 100%. Not to mention that my guys, it's like 4 or 5 of them that plays older. I want my guys to get a Super Bowl, so I'm all in on Cincinnati winning it.
Yeah, it's different though. It's not like it's the Steelers or Ravens. People, outside of Ohio or outside of Cleveland, I know they're the rival, but like we don't hate the Bengals as much as we hate the Steelers and Ravens.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to get on my soapbox just for a second here because my family, they don't like Tom Brady. All right. They're all Tom Brady, that and whatever. Now, Tom Brady and I are very close in age by about 3 years.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see him play to 50. When he said that, I'm like, I want to see this happen. In reality, obviously, it didn't happen. So we have Tom Brady, who played for 22 years. He retires. And now we have the next crop of quarterbacks, the Joe Burrows of the league. A couple years ago, remember, he blew out his knee. Now he's in the Super Bowl. Is he the next big NFL star? I mean, when you're looking, if he makes it, gets to the top, even higher than what he is now, can the NFL ride his top status over the next 3 to 5 years and possibly beyond?
I think they can. Joe Burrow to me is a young Tom Brady. You know how you say you don't bet against Tom Brady. You know how people say that. That's kind of where I'm at with Joe right now. Like Joe, I mean, the man got sacked 9 times and he still found a way to win the game. So I think he's one of those guys that just got that it factor, man. He got that confidence and that swag about himself that you can't never count him out. Like right now, people look at this and be like, oh, the Rams is going to win this hands down. They got these D linemen, they got Cooper Kupp, they got Odell. But to me, I'm like, as long as they got Joe, they got a chance. So I think, Joe is definitely going to be one of those guys that we talk about in the future, especially if he gets this one done. If he wins this Super Bowl, I'm almost willing to put him on the same level as Michael Jordan. And that if you did, all he need to do is get to the Super Bowl, and he's going to find a way to win the thing. So that's about where I'm at right now with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Joe Burrow to me, we're all Browns fans, and I get hit on Twitter about, well, how could you root for him? I like the guy. He's a good guy. He's an Ohio kid. Yeah, he went to Ohio State briefly, and he plays for the rival.
Oh, you got to hit him back and say, how could you not root for the guy?
That's what I did, and it's like I just don't get it. Like he's such a good, good guy off the field. Teammates love him. He had a historical college career at LSU, or I should say that one season at LSU, and he was a 6th round draft pick projected to be prior to that breakout historical season, and then somehow just destroyed the draft board and was drafted number 1. And you hear him in his interviews. He always deflects to his teammates. I don't know. He's just a good guy. I mean, it's the Bengals. It could be worse. He could be on the Steelers or Ravens, right?
If he was on the Steelers, I'll root for Joe, but I ain't rooting for the Steelers.
Right. All right, Tyvis, we're going to wrap this up soon here, but Scott and I do this little rapid fire question, after every interview before we let our guests go. We just ask random questions about sports, culture, media, you name it, whatever. So the first thing comes to mind, just shoot it from the hip if you have anything on your mind real quick. So a first question, I'm going to go first. Scott and I are going to bounce back and forth. So the first question I have for you in our rapid fire segment is toughest wide receiver you've ever covered.
Doug Baldwin, that man right there, as a rookie in the NFL, he made me question it if the NFL was for me. That man is the release king, and can't nobody tell me otherwise.
Wow, you had that locked and loaded.
Because I still have nightmares about that man. Wow. That man spit me around so many times in practice, it was ridiculous.
All right, favorite NFL player now and when you were a kid?
Oh, my favorite. When I was a kid, I was a huge Chad Ochocinco fan. Chad Johnson, whatever name you want to go by. Couldn't nobody tell me that I wasn't going to be the next Chad Johnson. I was a receiver at heart. Now, my favorite player now in the NFL. Ooh, that's actually a good question.
Is it Joe Burrow?
Nah, it could be. It could. My favorite NFL player now.
There's not a DB out there that you like?
I mean, I'm cool with Sherm, but
Yeah,
I don't want him to know that, even though he probably, I didn't said it, but I don't want him to know that he's my favorite DB because he'll use it against me. So, my favorite DB, I like Jalen Ramsey. I like Jalen Ramsey's game. I like the trash talk and his confidence and the swag that he comes with.
Yeah, his trash talking game is similar to Gary Payton in the NBA back in the day.
He good. It really affects me. I'm gonna tell you what I knew that he must be saying some good stuff. When he got AJ Green to fight him on the field, I said, "Oh yeah, he didn't touch the nerve."
Can only imagine what he told him. All right, Tyvis, what's your favorite TV show you're streaming right now?
My favorite TV show that I'm streaming is I like the Euphoria. I try to keep in with the young kids. I don't want to age myself. So whatever the kids is into, I try to keep up with them. So I'm watching Euphoria and Power by 50 Cent. Those all that stuff.
Favorite place to eat in Cleveland?
Oh, that's good. My favorite place to eat in Cleveland. I ain't been there in a while, but I did when I was living in Cleveland. I used to go to Lagos at least once a week because I knew Fabio, obviously, and Lagos got this burger and they got this angel hair pasta that's just out of this world. So I used to alternate those two at least once a week.
Favorite college and NFL teammate?
Oh, my favorite college teammate, probably Von Bell. The man, that's like my brother. My favorite NFL teammate. I'm not saying his name. I'm not, because I don't want him to know that. Greg Maven is who I'm going to go with. It would be Sherm, but I don't want him to know that. So right. Greg Maven.
So other than the Horseshoe, your favorite college venue?
I like Penn State. Happy Valley at night, that whiteout. That's if you've never played in the setting, you missing out. They really do a good job, and being the bad, quote unquote, bad guy is a great thing going into there.
All right, favorite NFL venue?
My favorite NFL venue, I like Kansas City. Kansas City was loud, man. I see why they are rated between there and Seattle. I like Seattle too. Obviously, I was biased because I played there, but Kansas City was loud too. So one of those.
The two loudest stadiums in the world, apparently.
Yeah, that 12th man thing in Seattle, they take that seriously. Like it's. Ooh, you make a play on there, because I had the privilege of making a big play there. I had cracked back this dude on this punt return, and I heard that stadium erupt. Man, I just felt the energy. I was like, oh, let's go.
You could run through a brick wall.
Yeah.
All right, so aside from Cleveland, what NFL city has the best food? Can you kind of sense where we talk a lot about food here, and it's kind of one of our...
Man, I'm getting hungry.
Yeah,
I'm about to say it is. I'd have missed my lunch. Let me see the best NFL food. The best food you ask it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay,
what
so
NFL city has the best food?
So the funny thing. This is funny that you asked. So every team that I play with, the 7 or 8 teams, me and my wife always go out to what they would consider one of the top steakhouses out in these cities. And every we've been on 8, and the number one choice is John Howie's in Seattle. For some odd reason, my wife had a steak from there that it was amazing to her. And she just keeps telling me that we got to go out there and visit the Sherman so we could go to John Howie's and stuff like that. So I'm going to just say John Howie's because I don't want to get yelled at when she hears this.
Right. Speaking of steak, my wife bought a couple of steaks about a week and a half ago, and she's like, we got to thaw these steaks and cook them. And then all of a sudden this snow hits, my grill is covered in snow. So it's going to take more effort to actually uncover the grill with all the snow to cook the steak. We're like, no, I got to wait for like 3 weeks. So
yeah.
Hey, Scott, since I just moved back to Cleveland,
I
brought my grill and there's no snow on it. So just come over and bring those steaks. Tyvis, you come over.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, just put it in the garage and we're good to go.
I'm down for that.
Tyvis, what are your hobbies outside of football? I know we're talking about podcasting. You're married, you have a daughter and then another child on the way. So obviously being a husband and father are a hobby, obviously. What outside of those, what is something that people may not know about you that you enjoy doing?
Well, I'm a huge gamer. That's one. Two, I am like a workout guru, which is sometimes not healthy. And three, I actually am into reading now. Now let me ask you this. I need to ask this question. If you read, okay, so if I listen to audiobooks, does that count as reading books? What do you think?
So. I think so.
Okay, all right. So
I got a 40-minute drive into work, and I'll put a podcast on, and then I'll be, you know what? I got to get something that I can really soak up. It's different than reading something out of a book. But I think it counts. Sure, you're getting the material. That's important.
See, all right. So it's last year, that was my New Year's resolution. I wanted to read 5 books, but I listened to 5 audio books.
Hey man,
and I actually like paid attention. Like as I'm driving, I'm locked into what they say. So it's like that should count, right?
It counts. I'm going to allow it too. I think the fact that you take the effort to do that instead of maybe listening to music or radio or talk show or whatever, that you're actually going ahead and taking that effort to listen to that.
Yeah,
that counts. Give us an audiobook that you listen to.
I was listening to Relentless. That's the book he was talking about, because it was a trainer. He dealt with Michael Jordan, Kobe, D Wade, like he was their trainers. Good book, really good book. And then I ended up listening to some rapping books. And the next book I'm about to read is the Will Smith book that he just came out with. I want to read that.
Speaking of Will Smith, I got to watch that movie he's in, where he plays Serena Williams' dad.
I just watched that a month ago.
How was that? It
was a really good movie. Really good movie. You might tear up. And I don't even cry no more. And I almost shed a tear.
Well, Will Smith is in that other Disney Plus series too, isn't it? Isn't he in a Disney Plus? What is it? Welcome to Earth. It's like a documentary, insight into some of the world's most remote and uncharted locations. It's kind of like a National Geographic type thing.
You like that Discovery Channel stuff, don't you? That kind of.
Yeah, that was my jam when I was a little.
Oh, I remember.
Wait a minute. Have you watched the show?
No, I just know of it. I've heard good things. I just quickly Googled it, and I just read the little description there.
John knows everything about the pyramids and all that stuff. You should ask him, man. He was dialed into all that stuff back in the day.
Oh, yeah. And I found that stuff fascinating. And you mentioned the Will Smith, and I thought of that. I'm like, this was just on Disney Plus. And actually, I saw it on the interface when you get on the app recently. And I'm like, man, I really need to watch it. It looks pretty cool.
Check it. Will Smith never puts out bad stuff, so it's probably good.
Ooh, good point. What are we counting? One of the Men in Black sequels? That was kind of bad.
Whoa! Which one?
Wasn't he in Men? Was Men in Black 2? Was that bad?
I don't think it was. That's when the one came back, right? He had retired and he ended up coming back, right?
Yeah, and then the third one kind of tied the whole storyline together.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, now so
don't do that.
Right,
the only questionable movie Will Smith ever put out was the Wild Wild West. That's it.
Oh,
yeah, I know.
Yeah. Wow, that was pretty bad. I forgot.
That cost like $1 billion to make, and I remember that.
that flopped. That movie flopped worse than most Browns' first-round draft picks.
Low below.
Yeah, what's your favorite video game?
My favorite video. I'm a Call of Duty guy, or 2K, NBA 2K. I don't play Madden because obviously I've lived it, and when I play against people, like I actually do what I was taught, and it works. So it kind of makes me good by default, and I just feel like it's cheating to do that. So I just stay off of it.
Most famous jersey you received in a post-game jersey swap?
Most famous.
Or maybe nostalgic for you.
Well, I mean, I switched with all my Ohio State teammates. That was first. Probably Zeke. That'd probably be the one. Yeah, Zeke. Because he's a big name guy. So Ezekiel Elliott. I was scared to ask those high name guys, but I tell you what, I do got a Richard Sherman one coming. And I can get a Cam. I can get the whole LOB because they owe me. They owe me. So I'm like, you know what? I want to get everybody from the LOB's jersey. Put it in my man cave.
Oh, hold on. So you were afraid to ask Zeke for his jersey, yet you played with him at Ohio State.
No. I'm talking. Zeke wasn't a high profile guy yet when we did this. This was rookie season.
Oh, I got you.
I'm talking about when after that, like if we went against Tom Brady, it's like, I'm not about to, Tom, you want to do a jersey swap? He's going to be like, who are you?
Yeah.
All right. Favorite pregame meal?
I used to always like pasta. It was red pasta sauce, penne noodles with chicken and some type of cheese in there. Yeah. Whoa, I know. It sounds good, don't it?
Wasn't too heavy for you, or you have to?
Nah, you see, I wanted it to last throughout the whole game. See, some people eat that, they eat light, and then at halftime they looking for PB&Js and oranges and stuff like that. And I didn't want that to happen.
So how many hours before the game are you eating that? Because when I think of someone eating pasta right before an athletic event, I don't know. Did you ever watch The Office?
No.
There's Scott, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
I know. Wait, what happened on The Office?
So you know Steve Carell and that guy, right? Okay, so they did this fundraiser 5K for fighting rabies or something, and he carb loaded and ate fettuccine Alfredo like right at the finish line right before, and then he gets maybe a quarter of a mile in and just throws up everywhere.
Well, see that I wouldn't do it that soon.
Yeah. Right. But
usually we eat like maybe 5 to 6 hours before a game.
Okay, right. Yeah, I knew you're not going to do that, but when I hear pasta before a game, I instantly go to that, the magical TV moment.
Yeah, you can't. I wouldn't do it an hour before. I eat some fruit or something like that to be light.
Well, Tyvis, it was a pleasure having you on our podcast. One of my brothers said we were getting you on the podcast. We're like, man, this is going to be a fun conversation. John and I, we wish you the best of luck with the podcast, co-host of Orange's Oranger podcast. So you can check it out online, and we'll put a bunch of links on Twitter and all that for you. So you'll get a lot of run from our end too.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Tyvis, thanks a lot, man. It was good talking to you. We'll chat again soon.
Thank you for having me, y'all. Have a good day. Enjoy it. Make sure you get that grill. If you don't get the grill, I do want to come get a steak. So keep me posted.
I got you. You got it.
Man, Scott, Tyvis was such a great interview, a wealth of knowledge, a character, animated, gotta love his intensity. I can only imagine how he was on the football field, lining up against him if you're a wide receiver or just a teammate.
Absolutely. And he talks about how the game on the field and especially off the field, how that's changed in the last 7 to 8 years. He was on that national championship team in 2014. And here we are, like he was joking around, he kind of wishes he came into the college ranks, maybe about 5-6 years, maybe further on down the line, because then, he could have capitalized on some of the changes. But, he's a guy that's he's real thankful for the time that he had in college and the NFL, and that doesn't fall short with him.
Yeah, and the other thing too is you talk about Scott, his love for the game and love for football. He's also very involved in other activities too. He's going to be a father a second time coming up here later this spring, Absolutely. Which is awesome. And he's trying to now maybe dip his toes in the media realm where we are currently in. So the future is definitely bright for him on whatever he wants to go into. But you talk about getting in the college game, a couple years or a few years too late. NAIL is blowing up, and college players are finally getting paid. Correct. I loved his thoughts on the transfer portal. I think too many times, and you coaching your kids in their sports, you teach your kids, you got to overcome adversity when the times hit, rough. You got to keep, driving. Now, a lot of those kids take the easy way out with that transfer portal at the college level. And sometimes they're but when you're a freshman, it's a little harder to really kind of give them sympathy.
It really is. Yeah. And of course, if you're not in that world, it's very difficult to relate to. A lot of fans look at that, like you said, and they look at that and go, just stick it out a couple more years and see what happens. So it was a fun talk. It's interesting, especially talking with Tyvis, who comes from Cleveland, who had the opportunity to at least play for the Browns at least 3 or 4 months. It was in the off season, but you could even sense the excitement even now. How many years later that just, especially back then when he was playing for the Browns, and how much that meant to him, and how he saw the Browns coming back in 99. And, it just like all of us, we grow up, we want to play for the Browns. We want to, and to have that opportunity to be on the field like that, he's still a young guy, but it's still something that touches him right here, right in the heart.
Yeah, 27 years old, played for the Browns in 2017 in the offseason for about 4 months before ultimately getting released. But hey, he got there, and he put on that historic orange helmet, which is something that you and I are a little jealous of in a way. But,
absolutely.
So you can't take that away from him, that's for sure.
That's true. So you can check out our podcast right here, Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. You can also check it out online. Don't forget to leave a review too. If you happen to listen to one of our episodes, leave a review. Tell us what you like, what you didn't like. If you have any suggestions, you can always send me a message on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Scott Sabol, FOX8.
And mine is @John_Sabol, or you can tweet us at the podcast handle @Sabol Brothers.
So I want to thank Tyvis Powell for being on our podcast. He is also the co-host of Orange is Oranger podcast, right here, a part of our podcast family here on Press Play Podcast. And we'll be listening for him. And join us next time, everybody.